My name's John Passfield, and the title of this reading, sorry, not the role, but the title of this reading will be The Mammoth Cheese, Video 18, the interview part 3. So here's the novel, James McIntyre, The Mammoth Cheese, a novel by John Passfield. And here's the summary. With a contribution of 800 cows, the tiny village of Ingersoll, Ontario has not only produced the world's largest block of cheese, it has also nurtured the epic poet who can rapturously sing its praises. Now, if only Queen Victoria can be persuaded to take a hearty bite and add her majestic voice to the poet's ecstatic hymns of praise, the mammoth cheese will become the edible jewel in the crown of the globe-girdling British Empire. Well, let's hope that happens. For the sake of brevity, I've broken the interview into 3 video readings, so this will be the third, the final reading from the interview, and this will be from chapters 11 to 16. Now, I've also suggested that a reader or listener ask not only what is he saying, but what is he thinking? Something's bothering James McIntyre, the main character of this novel, and perhaps in this section, the third segment of interview, he'll come right out and say what he's thinking. We'll see. Let's go to page 80. And the interview will continue from the other videos, continue from earlier in the novel. Now, let me ask a simple question. Let me turn the tables on you. Let me ask a blunt question and let you squirm. Why the intense personal interests? Why not content yourself with questions about my verse? Why the concern with what I am in my daily life? Why do you tell me about yourself, your interests in your dreams? Why insist that all your linen be aired on the line? I asked to hear about your town, about your activities hereabouts, about the landscape and the festivals and things. That is what I write about. I write of the life of the community. I write about the people as public people, not private lives. That is what I expect from you. Simply, what is your function? What is your role? Not your hopes and dreams and failures, not the talents that are tearing apart your soul. Is Homer's name found in the Iliad? Is Shakespeare's name found in the plays? Does the death of a wife or son ever appear? Their hopes and their dreams when they were young, their disappointments in middle age, the tears they cried when their plans went up in smoke? They write of sailors and soldiers and kings. They write of ships and rocks and storms. They write of battles and journeys and gods who manipulate things. The great writers never write about themselves. I don't expect to talk about me when I talk to you. I don't expect to listen to your personal agonies and despairs. Did Shakespeare have a toothache when he was writing about King Lear? Did Homer break a string on his lyre when he was singing of the Battle of Troy? Why didn't either write his memoirs and leave them behind? So, no more personal questions, please. I'll ask no personal questions of you. Great literature is not a mailbag stuffed with the gossip of the day. Okay, on to the next chapter then of interview. So what kind of writer am I? Well, that's a very interesting question. I've certainly noticed that there are different kinds of writers. There's a writer who's in control of the life, but not in control of the writing. Then there's the writers in control of the writing, but not in control of the life. You are asking, I assume, what kind of writer am I? But, of course, if you think about it, it's a little bit more complicated than that. There's a writer we would hope was in control of both the writing and the life. And there's a writer, alas, who is not in control of the writing and the life. So what of Shakespeare, Shelley, Keats, Wordsworth, Byron? How do we take these writers and place them on a grid? There would be 2 grids, I imagine, one for the writing and one for the life. Or maybe 4 grids, or could it be 6, or would it be 8? Successful writing and successful life, successful writing and not successful life, not successful writing and successful life, not successful writing and not successful life. So, what of Chaucer, the life and the poems? What of Homer, the life and the epics? What of Milton, the life and the writing of Paradise Lost? What of Blake, Wordsworth, Coleridge? What of Byron, Shelley, and Keats? What kind of writer would we take these authors to be? What of Shakespeare, the ultimate author? One of the great plays. Of the great plays, there can be no doubt, but there's a paucity of information to fit on the grid. What about me? I believe you're asking. Where do I put myself on such a grid? How do I judge myself as a writer and as a self? Well, the one I'd say is out of my hands. Friends and family can judge me while I exist in this vale of tears. Ultimately, it's between myself and God. Too early to tell, I would have to say. For the other, my greatest work still lies gloriously ahead. The fate of my epic poem will determine the toss of that dice. What demons did Homer face in Hades, in the Hades of his imagination? To what underworld did he descend as he rode the cage to the bottom of the shaft? Who were the people who pointed their fingers with blazing eyes? Byron? Lying in a fever at Missolonghi? What spirits was he seeing in his swampy underworld, poking at him with the rusty blade of his personal pride? Shelley, bracing himself against the gunwale during the storm? What descent into fire and brimstone was threatened by the waves? What spirit covered in seaweed called to him from the depths of a serpentine? Keats, tossing and turning on his sweat-soaked pillow, chattered in ascending the attic, while descending darkly to the deepest depths inside? To what hell could I descend? To what afterworld could I plunge down? What Hades is waiting to confront me when I die? Whose divine buttock have I singed with a hot poker as I clean the clinkers from the Olympic grate? Whose solemn speech did I interrupt as I sneezed with hay fever during an enclave of the gods? What sacred candle have I lit inadvertently whose wick of life was not meant to be my own? I, a hummingbird with tired wings as I cling exhausted to a tiny twig on the lowest level of the heavenly tree. I, an ant whose belly drags in the dust as I crawl penitently on the thorns of sacred groves. What terrors can I expect as I'm launched at the river Styx, arms folded, in a pine box of my own design? Is life a road map with a corner torn off? Is life a treasure map with no X? Is life a lamp with a missing wick? Is life an ocean with no bottom and no sides? King Lear in the heath? Oedipus at Colonus? Prometheus chained to the rock? Is greatness a tantrum at broken toys on the nursery floor? Take the heart out of the chest, take the brain out of the skull, take the knife and peel the covers from the eyes? Take the ears from off the head, and thou shalt hear? Dark without the sun, dark without the moon, dark with not a star in the sky. Find the crevice on the surface of your mind. Take the spade and lift the sod and set it aside. Dig a hole the size of a grave as deep as you can. Place a ladder in the hole and begin to descend. Take a lantern as a shield against the dark. I will wait beside the hole for your return. Come on now. You can't be serious. Now, why would I want to play a silly game? Exactly what do you want me to do? Look in your eyes and guess as much as I possibly can? Are you offering a prize? How do I figure out my score? Why don't you just tell me what you want me to know? Well, I do have an idle hour. They tell me that nothing will happen for a while, so I'll indulge your whim to pass away the time. Now let me see. You're obviously about 10 years younger than me, much like me in stature and size, the color of the hair and that wrinkle when you frown. Starting out in your profession, much like me when I was your age. I began, though, in an entirely different trade. A little past the first bloom of youth, settled into a life routine, but young enough to retain your hopes and your dreams. Old enough to be married, of course. I was younger than you are now, so this is where I will start the guessing game. Married, I would say. Married and happy, I would guess. Not every marriage produces a bloom that I see in you. Children? You must like children. I'm guessing for you a young son, a beautiful, cheerful, playful little boy. In your profession, some discontent. The ladder's high, you're eager to climb. In your personal life, a shadow looms ahead. What? The game is over, my young friend? I pause without reply. Well, then some answers, if you please. I'm curious as to whether I won your little game. What's the matter? Why so quiet? Surely something has given you pause. There was merely a figure of speech. There is no shadow. It was only a metaphor. Now, catch your breath. Calm down. I have no knowledge of what is to come. I'm not a clairvoyant. I have no crystal ball. I was merely playing along with your guessing game. I say the shadow is not a shadow. I didn't mean to cause alarm. You've been struck a blow, my friend. Deeply wounded, it would seem, by a metaphor. Okay, let's move on to the next chapter, chapter 14 of the interview. I lost my only son in an accident at the store. I mention that just to head off any questions that you might accidentally ask. I'd rather stay away from that particular fact. He was the son of my first wife and I. Memories linger, of course, from when he was a boy. To bury a child, as they say, is the most regrettable act there could be in anyone's life. I've had 2 wives. My son was the son of my first wife. Years apart, died my wife and my son on the very same day. My first wife and I met when we were young. It was a romance out of a book, a young apprentice at furniture making, a furniture maker's daughter, a gradual awakening of the possibilities and the promises of life. My second wife and I shared a glorious rebirth. Well, a rebirth for me, but not for her. Not for her, as she, unlike me, had not died. We are carried wherever life takes us, whether we steer our frail craft or not. And that, my friend, is all I will say about that. I formed a bond with many people in my life. I think of a bond as like a glue in a furniture factory. In a factory, as in life, there are glues of different kinds. I formed a bond with my father. I formed a bond with my mother as well. It was a very special bond, which has lasted for life. Every glue has a purpose. Every purpose has a glue. That is all I have to say about my lost son. And that is all I have to say about my 2 wives. Oops. I've lost my place here. I like a cup of tea in the morning. I perform my ablutions like everybody else. All of this while the kettle is on the boil. Cup of tea out on the porch. Know what I say as I sip my tea? Who wouldn't want to live here, I always say. In Ingersoll, in Ontario, in Canada. Rain or sunshine, winter or summer, spring or fall. Every morning, I feel the same. This place has been good to me, and I feel I'm giving something back. We can only give what we have. Do you know what I mean? Okay, then on to chapter 15 of the interview. The progress of the epic? Well, I can't actually write the epic, of course, until the great saga has taken place. The epic will be the record of the adventure of the Mammoth cheese, a response in art to a profound experience of a major aspect of life. Yes, the experience as far as the launching goes is indisputably underway. The cows have all been milked, the cheese has been processed, the plan has been made, and the Mammoth cheese is now exhibited gloriously on display. Its immensity of presence can never be denied. Oops, missing a page here. Okay, sorry for the delay here. And as far as the winning of the prizes, the achievement of acclaim, why, that is as inevitable as the sun in the morning in the sky. The sun rises, it crests at noon, and remains where it is throughout the day. The Mammoth cheese has already been created in all its splendor, in all its size, in all its immensity of bulk, and it will go on like the sun to be the light that is pasted forever in the sky. As for the progress of the epic poem, I've jotted down some couplets from time to time, but I need the actual voyage, the adventure, the quest, as a frame on which to hang the rhyming couplets, an envelope in which to deliver this soul-searing thought experience to future readers. Without the world-encompassing experience of the great adventure, the braving of the waves and the great shipwrecks and the washing up of the hero on the shore, they would just be images of cows and milk and cheese. And now chapter 16, the final chapter of interview. And now, maybe you don't mind, I have a question for you, although I realize that you are interviewing me. Not an interview in reverse, just a simple question. I'm asking myself as I ask this question of you. Just suppose, as some of your questions, so hard-hitting, so unrelenting, just might have implied, that the epic adventure does not take place, that it turns out that conditions are not propitious for the undertaking of such a magnificent mythical quest. That the bold and wily hero does not undertake a dangerous voyage in treacherous seas, that he does not wash up exhausted on a mysterious shore, that he does not persevere and win the prize, that the story is not found to be suitable for the form of the epic, that the things that didn't happen are the adventure, the regretted alternative adventure, as one might say. How could such information, such unconsidered information, such unvalued information, such uncompromising information, such destined for the scrap heap information, find itself a literary form? I've just read the third section of the novel-length interview. In my notes to the first two readings, I raised the question as to what is true, what is factual, what is established in the novel, and what is not. In particular, I've suggested that the novel does not establish whether or not the interview actually takes place. For whether or not the person who is conducting the interview Is the main character James McIntyre himself, or is the young reporter from Saratoga, New York? I once watched an interview with a very prominent Canadian novelist in which the novelist told the interviewer that all questions were answered by the end of her new novel because, as she said, I feel I owe my readers an ending. I've said in a number of my notebooks and journals that the big split in the approach to the novel as a literary genre, which occurred in the early 20th century from 1900 to 1930, between the realistic novelists and the modernistic novelists, included the question of the proper, the desirable endings for novels. The traditionalists, the realists, suggested, as did the Canadian novelist whom I saw on TV, that the novel owes the reader a tying up of all of the questions, all of the threads that have been presented as loose during the course of the story. The new novelists, the modernists, believed that a novel should leave unanswered questions as the reader closes the book. If I were to take the side of the modernists, I would say that the realistic novel, with its tying up of all loose ends, with its answering of all the questions that have been raised during the course of the novel, provides for its readers a holiday, a break from what our life experience tells us to be true. That we do not have the answers to the most important questions of our lives. That we do not know the meaning of our lives here on earth, and we do not know what happens to us after death. How nice feel the readers of the realistic novels to take a break from that cosmic and spiritual uncertainty by sitting down and reading a good book that answers those questions for us. On the other hand, the modernists would say that a good book is not a holiday from life, but is a reflection of a life experience that we encounter as we live our lives here on earth. And therefore, a good book will leave us in a position we were in, not only as we started to read the book, but as we have been from the moment of birth until the moment we close the book. It's the glory of human beings, the modernists would say, that we speculate about such important questions as the meaning of our lives here on earth and what happens to us after we die. But it is foolish and even unhealthy to pretend to others or to convince ourselves that we've actually answered these questions. I suppose, to play with words, one could say that both groups of writers and readers, the realists and the modernists, claim that their particular brand of writing is realistic, that the other brand of novel writing is not realistic. I believe that both brands, both kinds, both genres of novel have their place. I do feel, though, that a reader should realize what kind of book they're reading. With both kinds of novel available, it's possible that some days readers can take a holiday from life, and other days readers can face life head on. So once again, this is my novel, James McIntyre, The Mammoth Cheese. There's more information about the novel on Amazon. There's more information at my publisher's website, roxmillspress.com. And on my website, johnpassfield.ca, 2 free books. Just click on an icon and you can read them. The planning notebook and the journal. So thank you for watching this video.